Welcome to the most northerly doctor in Britain podcast, produced by Michelle Langthorne. That's me. We will dive into insightful diary extracts recorded by Dr. Anne Marshall as she documents her extraordinary time as a sole GP providing routine and emergency care to the 632 inhabitants of Unst, located in Shetland. We listen together and then the reflection and conversation starts. Episode 5. Getting into it.
So it's Sunday evening and it's the end of my first of 3 weekends on call here on Unst, and I'm just at the health centre, but I'm just about to make my way back to the house in the electric car, which is why it's probably making some funny noises. It's been an interesting couple of days really. I thought it would be quieter than it is, and a couple of reflections on it really. So it's obviously been a long time since I've been on call. I did on calls when I first started in general practice 20 plus years ago, and it's very difficult to switch off. You're always waiting for the phone to go even though you're not actually at work. My first call out yesterday was for a lady who'd forgotten her medication, and this medication was absolutely vital really for the weekend, so that was nice and easy. Just met her at the health centre and gave her the medication that she needed. And then I had a little boy later on who probably had a urine infection and then became more unwell, but by that point his family had gone down to Lerwick, the main town, 2 ferry rides away, so I had to work out what to do with him because I felt he needed a review because he'd become more unwell, and actually the system down there is that they go to A&E for assessment, so that's what they did. I phoned up A&E and got just gave them the heads up really. And then I had a call at 1 a.m, which was a bit of a shock. I was in such a deep sleep, and it was a middle-aged man who was having problems with his insulin, high blood sugars. Fortunately, I was able to deal with that over the phone, and he's since been in today, Sunday, to see the nurse just to get things checked out. But that was really helped by the use of what's called a Freestyle Libre system, which is the continuous glucose monitoring system that patients with diabetes can have, where they wear a little device on their arm and their phone picks up the glucose readings, and it tells you if their blood sugars are going up or down, so what the trend is. So if it is quite high, you can be reassured if it's on its way down, which it was. So that was actually really useful, and tomorrow I suspect I'll be speaking to the specialist diabetic nurse just to get some advice about it, because he was actually not very well last week and was in hospital with his diabetes. So that was yesterday, and then today I've had just a couple of call outs. One, I was literally just sat down to eat my fish and chips supper, so every now and again they have at the local community hall evenings where they do food for the community, and tonight it was fish and chips, which were absolutely delicious. However, they literally just brought it out for us and my phone went, so I had to leave my husband stranded in this hall, and I headed off to the health centre to see a child who'd got an allergic reaction to prawns. Fortunately it was quite a mild reaction, but in the past he has had quite a serious reaction, so obviously I needed to attend and assess him and take it quite seriously. So I was able to give him some medication and gave his mum some advice about what to do if things got worse. And that's the other thing that I've found, that I've sort of reflected on, is that in Dorset, if someone's getting worse, it's not generally your problem as a GP. They call an ambulance, and that's normally what you tell them to do. So you can almost relax a little bit because there is a sort of safety netting plan in place, whereas here I am the ambulance, and I'm finding that quite difficult. So I'm constantly thinking about patients who I've sort of carried a degree of risk with, and that I'm constantly thinking and worrying about them and hoping they're all right. So I guess that's just something that improves as you get used to the patients, used to the systems, and just with time as being a GP actually quite tiring, even though I'm not busy all the time. My brain is constantly thinking about things and worrying about things. I managed to do a little bit of exercise. Fortunately, one of the calls came through just as I got home from my 5k run, which I was doing, running up and down past the house, so that wasn't too far away. So that was quite handy. Anyway, so I'm now just pulling up at home, and it's 8 o'clock, and there is a nearly full moon. It's quite a clear night, so who knows, we might see the northern lights tonight. I'm going to keep my eye out. But it's beautiful, quite still evening. It's been pretty windy here, which I think is fairly normal, but it's not quite so windy this evening. Anyway, I hope that's of interest, and hopefully I won't get too many calls out tonight because I've got to work all day in the surgery tomorrow. So I'm actually looking forward to going back to work in the surgery on a Monday morning, and I can't remember the last time I ever felt like that or thought that. But being surrounded by a team of people in the daytime, nurses and reception staff who can help with logistics, is so much more reassuring than being out and about on your own when it's dark. So yeah, looking forward to going into work tomorrow on a Monday morning.
Anne, that was your first weekend. We've just listened to what went on. Another really busy couple of days there for you. Listening to that again after a break, what do you feel? What sort of feelings and thoughts come to mind?
It felt like it was a bit in at the deep end, I must say. There was quite a varied sort of presentation of patients, so different problems, different ages, and obviously the logistics of things, being woken up in the middle of the night first for many years for work. So it was a bit of a baptism of fire, I think.
It definitely sounds like it was. And this island, when you think the responsibility is actually huge. You are, as you said, you're an ambulance, you're the GP, but you're also emergency medic. So yeah, it's full on. Now, you were switching off at one point. You were having fish and chips, weren't you?
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely downtime. It's you're not. There isn't that time pressure there that there is, in my normal day-to-day practice. But it's a different type of pressure, isn't it? But I think if you overthink that you are it, then you'd never do any of it. So you try not to think about it too much and just get on with what you know and what you've been trained to do.
It was a 24/7, 7-day-a-week gig, really, wasn't it? And that really does show it, because that was your weekend.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you grew from having to do all these things?
A bit like the thumb incident. It gave me a bit of confidence that by the time I got to work on Monday morning, right, I've done that, I can do a weekend here on my own, and now it's back to what I know in the surgery. So it was good.
Yeah, and you were looking forward to going back to work as well.
I was, yeah. Well, like I said, that was a first, to actually be surrounded by your comfort blanket of all your staff and the district nurses there, yeah.
Yeah. Shall we listen to the next clip?
Yeah.
So it's the beginning of my first full week here, full working week, and I thought I'd just record outside to get the wind. Hopefully some of the sheep will start blurting in the background as well, so that'll give it a bit more atmosphere. Anyway, so today I did my first full Monday at the surgery, so I just thought I'd give you a few insights from my day. At the moment I'm just standing outside the house where we're staying and just looking out across a sea lock with some sheep in front of me and some hills in the background, and there's a bit of blue sky, but it's not very warm. It's about 10 degrees, but it's very beautiful and very peaceful. So my day started at about 8:30 this morning. It was pretty full on actually till about 3 o'clock. So I saw patients continuously, a mixture of phone calls, urgent patients and routine patients that had booked appointments themselves. I was able to follow up on a patient that I saw yesterday who was quite unwell. That was on Sunday. I went to visit him at home with breathlessness and a rapid heart rate. And thankfully he was much better today. It was really reassuring to see him looking well, and he'd had had a repeat ECG, which was much improved. So it was good to follow that up, because I had been worrying about him yesterday evening and overnight, thinking that the safety net was me and that they were going to call back if he got worse. So that was really, really good to see, and quite reassuring that I managed it appropriately at the time. I saw a mixture of children, middle-aged and old people, and dealt with a few queries over the phone, and then had no home visits today, and the rest of my day was dealing with admin type work. I did a firearms certificate medical, and I signed some prescriptions and filed some results and looked over some paperwork correspondence from the local hospital. And I was actually finished by about 4:30, so that's unheard of in my practice in Dorset. So I was sort of twiddling my thumbs, so I decided I might as well go home. But the difference here is when you go home, you don't completely switch off. You're still on call, and you can never really fully relax. So my husband pointed out to me that you need to really try and pace yourself for this type of work, because if you work really hard and long days in the surgery and then you're on call 24/7, it'd be undoable and just exhausting. So he's right. I'm trying to listen and be sensible. This evening I'm off to the local leisure centre, which is a couple of minute drive down the road, a very small, well-resourced council-run leisure centre, to go to a fitness class. But obviously if I get called out, that might get cut short. Oh, and here's a car coming, which it's pretty unusual because it's so quiet. Hi Michelle, it's Thursday, the 4th of October, and I'm just out for a stroll after work. So I've been here a full week now. I'm actually slowly relaxing into the work. I'm just slowly getting into the routine of things and getting to grips with the IT and getting familiar with the staff and how all the systems and processes work. So it's been a good few days. It's been a bit quieter at the surgery the last couple of days. So it's coming up to the half term, which in October lasts for 2 weeks up here, because they start back at school in August after the summer holidays. So it's a long stretch till Christmas. So a lot of the families go away to somewhere warm. So I think half the island is leaving this weekend to go to the Mediterranean or the Canaries, as far as I can see. So it's quietened off a little bit at the surgery, but it's really pleasant to be able to see patients and just have enough time to talk to them and go through things properly and thoroughly, and not be rushed and pressured to get on to the next thing. So it's been a really good few days, and this afternoon I was just about to leave the surgery and a lady pitches up, rings the doorbell and says, "Been bitten by a dog." So the nurse brings her into my room and we have a look at her legs. So apparently her next door neighbour's collie took a disliking to her and took a nice big bite out of her lower leg. And we had a little look at it, cleaned it up, and it was quite clear that it probably needed closing with sutures, with stitches. And at the back of my mind I had this memory of the fact that it's not always good to close dog bites because of the risks of infection. So I ran it past the emergency department consultant at Lerwick at the Gilbert Bain Hospital, and he was able to just talk me through what I should do, and he advised just thoroughly cleaning it. Oh, there's some lovely birds just flying over the what are they called? The ones with the curved bills. Beautiful. Anyway, so he just advised to thoroughly clean it and irrigate the wound with disinfectant, which we did. And then I put in some local anaesthetic and put in 3 small stitches, and then added some paper stitches, steri strips on top of that. We gave her some antibiotics and a tetanus vaccine. So it was really quite, sounds a bit weird, but it was quite fun. just to do something practical and different, which I would never normally do in my day job in Dorset. So it was a good end to the day, and I felt quite satisfied that I'd been able to deal with it, because a year ago that's not something I would have been able to do, but because of the preparatory work I did for this sabbatical, I spent some time in A&E and also helped one of my colleagues do some minor surgery, so I was a bit more confident and up to date with my suturing skills. So it's been great to be able to put that into practice on my own. I'm feeling quite tired. I think constantly being on edge that the phone's going to ring, it takes a bit of getting used to, and Wednesday afternoon the surgery shuts for the afternoon, but within half an hour of leaving the surgery to go and have a cup of tea at the one and only tea room on the island, I got a call to go and do an urgent home visit, and John, my husband, was in the car, so he had to sit in the car while I went off and did this visit, because it was literally just around the corner from the tea shop. So spent an hour dealing with that, and ending up admitting this chap on my afternoon off. Well, when I say afternoon off, it was on the afternoon that the surgery is shut, but obviously I never have any time where I'm truly off. But we did manage to get to the tea room before it shut for a piece of amazing banana bread and a well-needed cup of tea. I've realised that whilst you're quite isolated here as a doctor, you're not alone. You have usually 2 or 3 very good nurses around, and one's always on call with you, and there's always someone on the end of the phone. So what I found is when I phoned up the local hospital, they are very mindful of the fact that the GPs up here are really isolated, and they seem really helpful and friendly and willing to offer help and advice, which is very nice and refreshing. I spoke to a paediatrician earlier in the week, and he got back to me really quickly and was very supportive, as was the nurse who was also involved in this particular case. So whilst you're alone, you're not alone. Anyway, it's freezing out here. The temperature here at the moment is about 8 degrees, and looking at the forecast at home in Dorset, it's going to be over 20 degrees this weekend, and it's dropping here to about 5 degrees real feel at the weekend. So it's quite different, but it's how it should be in October.
You were very happy. It was half term. People were going to warmer places.
Their half term's actually 2 weeks, so they were all off to the Mediterranean or the Canaries to escape the cool autumn just before the winter sets in. So it became quite quiet at the surgery, relatively quiet. So the workload, the pressure of the days was very manageable and very enjoyable, actually.
You did sound very happy.
Yeah.
Whilst recording that, some curlews were flying.
Yeah, they were. I couldn't remember the name of them in the recording, but they're such beautiful birds and beautiful call as well. Yeah.
I think actually there's a little treat in store for everyone, because we do have some audio of curlews that you recorded. Now, you mentioned the hospital. There's no hospital, obviously, where you are, on the island of Unst. But there is in Lerwick, I would say, but you pronounce it Lerwick.
Well, the locals tend to pronounce it in different ways, but some of them say Lerwick.
Lerwick.
If you listen to the drama that's Shetland, they do pronounce it Lerwick, I think, sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, you're into that too now. I mentioned it.
I was into that before, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. You kept that quiet. But that's where the hospital is, to be serious. That's where, sort of, unless it's very, very serious, you were liaising with that hospital on quite a regular basis.
Yeah, and they were really helpful there. So it's a very small district general hospital. The consultants tend to do, cover different specialties. So, and they were always really helpful when I spoke to them, and, recognised that we were quite isolated and were very supportive, which I was quite surprised about, actually. You don't always get that response when you admit someone to your local district general hospital. So that was good. But it is a very small hospital, and actually the nearest big referral centre is Aberdeen. So if you had someone who was having a heart attack, for example, or major trauma, they would go directly there.
So it's just something they live with and they're quite happy with. They know no different.
Exactly, they have to accept that. But they do actually get quite good service in terms of, being able to access outpatients and so on. The waiting times were relatively short there. So, they got to see, for example, a consultant dermatologist. I referred one patient at the beginning of my time there, and then they'd already been seen before I finished. So you certainly, and they weren't it wasn't an emergency cancer referral or anything. So, I thought that was an excellent service.
This podcast is copyrighted by Michelle Langthorne and all rights are reserved.